So I changed the resolution lower because it's kind of killing things. So a new look, which should help a bit. Lowered the frame rate a bit too, which might help. I should be. Let me take a look here. Let me go to, yeah, it's sending out sound. You should be able to hear me talking to you. Oh, well, should be sound. Let's see. Well, the audio mixer is where it seems to be doing its thing. Desktop audio too. Okay. Yeah, can you hear me? Did you hear me at all? On the okay, let me just put the phone to, let me mute. Okay, I'll hang up now. All right, so this is an experimental broadcast from the Wilson Cooley Observatory. We recently just got Wi-Fi and internet out here, so it is not the fastest internet. So we're just seeing if this will allow us to do a live stream from out here. What we're seeing is the moon. This is basically going to be getting every second or so a new image of the moon. My imager is not designed to pull things out live, but it will provide us with a lovely image of the moon. Interestingly, I'm taking pictures of the moon through my H-alpha filter mainly because it cuts out the. Okay, apparently the sound's going up. That's a good sign. I'm gonna just play around with the stretch here a little bit. Let's see. Stop that for a moment and we'll see if we can move a little brighter. There we go. Let her run now. All right, so looks like we're able to do broadcasting from here. We just have to probably play around with settings as we go forward. If you are on YouTube watching this, you can, there's a chat function you can ask questions on if you wish. I just need to find my cursor. Whoop, that's not where I wanted to do. There we go. All right. I have arranged for a second monitor, so I can actually have the broadcast software on one monitor and the actual broadcast coming off the other monitor there, which is what you're seeing. Just checking Twitter here. So let's see. I have two people watching apparently. Um, Now, thing to remember if you do ask a question. I mean, right now it's just the moon. I mean, it may look dark right now, but it's actually broad daylight here. The moon just happens to be up, and easy to see target. The sky looks dark on the image for two reasons. One, I set the screen stretch so that we're just really seeing the moon, and the other is I'm using my hydrogen alpha filter, which normally is for looking at nebula and stuff like that, but it has the advantage of cutting out a lot of light. The moon's very bright for a telescope, so we have to cut down the amount of light. So we're actually seeing the moon in a very deep red, also the very deep red colors of the moon in the image. So that's what we're seeing right now. It won't get dark here for another hour or so. We might move on to other things. Let's take a look around the moon here. Let's see, I can move it down a little bit more. You can see the more towards the bottom there. And we can see relatively, memory serves, the crater Tycho. This is a relatively new crater down here. Let me get my cursor over here. Here we go. Right down here. It's a new crater because it has all these rays coming out of it, which haven't been pulverized by micrometeorites yet. So I'm just going to get my little moon map out here so I can tell what things are. Yeah. Yep, that is indeed Tycho. Haha. What a memory for a guy who doesn't actually normally do a lot of looking at the moon. Let's see what we got around near the top here. We have my cursor back here. We have here some of the lunar mare. This is Mare Tranquility, the Sea of Tranquility, basically. And this little white dot here is a crater, but I use that as a guide because just over around here is where Apollo 11 landed. And we can move the telescope back up the other way. Look at kind of the northern chunk here. There's the Plato memory serves. Let me take a look here on my little map. It is Plato. Mare Ibrium is the Mare down in here. There's a little Graben Valley over here called the Alpine Valley, which is kind of cool to look at, though we can't see it in this image. This your Space 1999 fan, that's where they put Moonbase Alpha, was in this crater here. I'm just going to babble because I can. Because like I said, this is an experiment more than anything else. Get my controller to stay beside me here, though. Just a little bit far from the telescope. Let's see. Check my phone here to see what we have coming in on Twitter. Oh, nothing there, so that's good. Go back to my moon map. Let's see what else we have here. So these dark areas are mare, what they call lunar seas, but they're actually large plains of basaltic rock. Which bubbled up from inside the moon when it got hit by really big asteroids back in its early history. Though these are relatively recent features, and we know they're relatively recent in the sense that they don't have a lot of craters on them. Now, relatively recent means in the last 3 or so billion years ago, 3 or so billion years, so it's not that recent, but the particular one right now where my cursor is over is Maris, basically Serenitatis. My Latin teacher's probably rolling over in his grave for my inability to say these things. But that is where we are. So over here, this here is the Sea of Crisis, Mare Crisium. Down here, the Fecunditatis, Mare Fecunditatis. I can't remember what that means. Sea of Nectars, Mare Nectaris is down here. And what else do we have here? What I can do is we can I could change the way the imager's hooked up to the telescope. Right now it's directly hooked up to the telescope, but I can do it in such a way that we can zoom in. The telescope it's hooked up to is actually not a zoom in-y kind of telescope. It's more a wide field kind of telescope. So we can actually see most of them at the same time. So we're not really zooming in much, but let's move it up so we can see a little bit more. Okay, there's a prominent crater over here. Let's see what that guy is. It's the crater Copernicus. It is in the, oops, I lost there. It's in the Mare Insularum. Like I said, my Latin teacher's probably, like I said, rolling over in his grave. This appears Mare Imbrium, and then we have a string of mountains along here. These are up here called Lunar Alps. Like I said, there's a valley in there, which is kind of cool. It's pretty straight. If anybody has questions or anything, feel free to pop them into the live chat or on Twitter. This is an experiment. Like I said, we just recently received internet out here, and the internet's actually runs off basically the cellular system. So we're checking our bandwidth and stuff like that. Let's I'm going to change this and put it on medium and see what happens. See if we get nicer views. And maybe we'll put it on low. Let's see what happens. And plant. Just trying to change the contrast. The imager puts out way more brightness information than the computer monitor can show. So that's what this screen stretch thing's all about here. There we go. I'll leave it at that and see how it goes. It'll kind of pop back and forth as the computer kind of figures things out. It's windy out here today, so it is clear and not too bad. I may nip out briefly to put my fleece on and jack it up a bit and to cool off. But we have a live image of the moon, at least for the next little bit. See, current resolution 680 by 384, which is not optimal. Yes, well, we have a limit to what we can do. So we'll just let that run for it. I'm just going to go pop into the observatory building here and put my fleece on. I'll be right back. This will keep running. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I'm back for getting my jacket on. That's it. I can rotate it, but the next zoom up actually pushes it right off the screen. It gets bigger, but what I can do here. But there, you can zoom in like that, but I can't. It's a limitation of the zoom of Maxim DL Essentials. I can't. There's not a happy medium. This is the full, like what back here. This is the full size of the frame. The moon is about the size of the imager frame, so in order to get it, I could get the whole moon, and I'd have to rotate the imager, and then it would be sideways. So I'm thinking I might try popping a Barlow in, and then we can get a lot closer. It would require a bit of fiddling with the camera. So the camera right now is actually bolted on the telescope, and I'd have to change the nose piece. Currently have a couple of people. See, we're at 680 by 384 for resolution, so that's not bad. Fortunately, I had to change the resolution. I have to stop the streaming, which causes a big hassle, big mess. Let's see. What I can do, I'm gonna pop it into blue filter. Things will be looking different because I keep changing the filters. This is in a blue filter. What we'll do is we'll see if we can put our exposure down a little bit. The H alpha filter really cuts down the amount of light that comes through. So it's a very narrow band filter. It goes thousandth of a second. It's as fast as this. So there we are. That's not a bad. So this is in blue light. You get a little bit more detail all over. Let me zoom the image in a little bit here. Oops, wrong way. We can go take a look and walk around the moon a little bit. There we go. So let me zip up here to the top. So here we have, I was going to grab my lunar globe again on my phone, which gives me the names of things. So here we have this Mare here is Mare Imbrium, and then here's Sinus Iridium, which is kind of a bay in this sea. This is the crater Plato, and these are the Tenerife Mountains. These are the Lunar Alpines and Alpine Mountains. If you look very carefully right where the cursor is right now, you'll see a kind of a gray line that goes kind of from the kind of left and low to right and high. That is the Alpine Valley on the moon. Well, I can pop her into green, see what happens. I got green and red, so. Let's do green. Put her in red. There's red. Don't know if we're getting more contrast. I'm going to increase the exposure a little hair here. We'll focus. Just going to zoom in and do some more focus. Just tweak the focus a little bit. It's always difficult to focus some telescopes, and it's not helping right now. That find a edge here. That usually helps. Okay. I think that's going to be as good as the focus is going to get for now. Normally I have a focusing mask, but can't use it on the moon. We can zoom out here. Oh, there's a nice shot. And let's take a look. Let's zoom in a little bit again and take a look around. Whoop, maybe not that far. There we are. Okay, so like I said before, this is the Sea of Tranquility here. And this little crater here has a name. I just have to go look it up. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of writing on top of that one, so it's hard for me to see it. But like I said earlier, this little crater here, this is the Sea of Tranquility. This mare here. This crater is just down and right of Apollo 11, which landed around here. So that's where the Apollo 11 spacecraft landed. Let's move down south here a bit. See if we can see anything else. There are some craters along in here, but Ooh. The sun's too high over them right now on the moon. So let's zoom out a bit. Let's go take a look at some of the stuff over here, on the other side. So here we have the crater Copernicus. Let's go find it on my little map. There we are. I think we're in Copernicus. Yes. There's the crater Copernicus, and then below that, there's a couple more craters that have names here. Let me just zoom in. This is Reinhold, and then this one here, of Landsberg. And we got some mountains here called Carpatus. And this crater here is Eratosthenes. And then here we have the Apennine Mountains on the moon. And move up a little bit here. Accidentally hit the X. The computer's complaining about that. Okay, so there we have Plato, and then the crater Archimedes, Aristillus, Delicious. So now I'm just going to zoom out here a bit. There we go. We know that these areas here, the lunar mare, are newer than. Let's go down here to the bottom. This region here, because these regions are relatively flat and have few craters, whereas down here there's a lot more craters. And the terrain is much rougher. Oops. Don't know what I did there. Oh, I know what I did. There we go. I accidentally set up a subframe. So it was taking a picture of a very, very small chunk of the moon. Okay, let's find a nice. Am I going to stream the eclipse? I have a question from the RIO, our sister observatory here in Calgary. No, because I'd have the time the eclipse is at in the morning is such that I'm not going to be able to get anywhere to. I'm not be able to get anywhere to actually be able to see it. The moon will be too low on the horizon for me to see it from my residence. Here, we zoom up a bit here and take a look at the southern chunk of the moon. The southern chunk of the moon is much older. It's landscape. It's heavily cratered, and there's craters on craters on craters. Zoom in a bit here. If we click down here, you can see that. Let's zoom out a little bit so don't need to be that zoomed in. There we go. We can see that a lot of craters are on top of each other. There's craters beside other craters and looping into other craters. So this is how we know this area is much older. The moon is not, unlike the Earth, the moon is not geologically active, so craters don't get erased by geological processes such as weathering or what have you. So here we are in the southern chunk of the moon. Not sure if anyone's actually out there. It says we've got one viewer right now, so I don't know if that means, I don't know if that's me or if that's someone else. So let's take a look around. Getting some imaging artifacts here. So what I'm going to do is stop for a second here. And I'm going to get my camera set up and lower my readout speed a little bit. There we go. To help get rid of those little black bars. It will take a little bit longer to download the image. That's better. All right, I'm going to have this bit of a lull. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out the camera. What I'm going to do is change the camera. There we go. I'm going to change the camera so we can zoom in a little bit. So let me do that. And the image is kind of still at the moment, so we're going to be messing around with the camera. The imager. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in what's called a Barlow lens. So it's going to basically increase the focal length of the telescope. Which will allow us to zoom in a little bit more. However, I have to change the nose piece and redo the focus. So this will take a moment or so. Indulge me. Like I said, I'm just going to change the nose piece on the imager for a moment. That just lets me connect it right onto the telescope directly. So that lets me slide it into the 2-inch eyepiece adapter that the Barlow lens does. And then you should be able to look much closer at things. Let's see how bad the seeing is. It's just kind of windy here today. Not help. rather precarious setup on the telescope, we can try. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit expose, and we should get a big blurry image because I've changed. Yeah. If I can change the focus here. The problem, of course, is I'm in the middle of the moon right now. What I'll do is I'm going to move the telescope until I can get somewhere there's some. Here's the edge of the moon. There we are. Now I can use that to focus. Am I getting better or am I getting worse? I'm getting worse. Let's go all the way down here first. There we go. Zoom back here a little bit. Take a moment to get this focused. There we are. There we go. So what I've done, I have to close the door to the roll-off shirt. I'm going to glue it open. There we go. So what I've done is I've put what's called a Barlow lens in, which will basically zoom us in. So now if we move around the moon, oops, if I move around the moon the right way, oh, I am moving around the right way. We're getting a little bit better of a, much closer of a view. The lens I popped in, it essentially takes the focal length of the telescope and multiplies it by 2.5. So now we can actually get in a little closer and see a little bit more detail. Hopefully. So let's take a look around here and see what we can see. Let's see if we can find that Alpine Valley again. And then we can play with the contrast and see if we can. Keep in mind this is now the full frame. Well, it might be a little tricky because the wind is quite. And I'm going to actually increase the exposure a bit. Let's see, actually, when we. Yeah, I'm going to have to increase the exposure a little bit because greatly increase the the f ratio of the telescope. So yeah, to make that even more. Let's try that. That's better. We can still do a little better than that though. So let's do there. 500 a second. There we go. That's better. Getting much more information now. But now with the Barlow lens in, we can get in a little closer. So here we can see that Alpine Valley. I don't know if RAC Calgary's kicking around, but he plays a geologist in real life, so he can tell us what a graben is and how it formed and all that. But now we've got a much, since we've increased our focal length, we can see a little bit more detail. Now there's a limit to how much detail we can do with even increasing focal length, because there's a limit to the resolution of the telescope. It's a 20 centimeter telescope, so there's a limit there. And even before we hit the limit of the telescope, we'll hit the limit of the atmosphere. The atmosphere tends to mess things up as well. You can see there is kind of some, it almost looks like a kind of a warping, and that's because of the seeing. Now the exposure is 5/100ths of a second, which actually goes between the cells. So if we were to take lots of pictures like this, we would probably get some nice clear ones that we could use to actually make a decent picture. But let's take a look. Let's move down the moon here and see what we can see. So there's Plato and the Mare that's immediately south of it. And now let me go get my moon map here so I can figure out what these are. Okay, to zoom out of that. Let's do bigger. Okay, so we're down here, looks like. Yep, there we are. And here we have, this is the crater Archimedes. And then the crater right here is called Autolycus. And then this is Aristillus. It's probably Aristotle in Latin. This is kind of an older crater because it's kind of filled in. These are looks a little newer. This one's much newer. Here, see if that one has a name. I'm just trying to figure out where I am on the moon compared to those craters. Let's move down a little bit more. That's Hercules. It comes out. It goes to 2. Okay, so this guy here is the crater. I'm trying to see it here. Timocharis. There's a couple of little craters here that are named, and probably hard to see in here. And this guy here is called Bancroft. Go this way, actually a little bit. Right here, this whole range is called the Appendix Mountains. Here's where Hadley Rill is. It's in this area here. Let's see. And Apollo 15 landed in there. Down in there, probably looking at my map here, probably up around to this area where the cursor is right now. The wind's getting ugly out there. You can probably hear it. I'm in a roll-off observatory, so I've got a couple of walls, but to north and south, north, east, and west of me. But to the south of me, there is no wall. There's no roof, of course. So I get a little bit of the wind, but I can hear it. It's really Really windy out there. Oh, well, let's move down a little bit and see what else we can see here. All right. So here we have two craters. This guy here is Eratosthenes, after the Greek astronomer, and Copernicus, after Nicholas Copernicus, of course, is this crater down over here. This guy is a relatively newer crater. You can see it has a central peak, still has some rays coming out of it. So time has not had, there hasn't been time for the rays to get erased by micrometeorites. Let's see if we can get him kind of centered a little better. Oh, there's a nice clear picture. The picture, there we are, kind of centered now. The clarity of the picture will change constantly, mainly because of the atmospheric seeing. Like it's windy, so there's lots of air moving around. And it was warm today, and it's going to be cool tonight, so that's not going to help either. So there's Copernicus. And there's a bit of a mountain range up here. Some more craters around there. I don't have names for a lot of these things because my lunar map on my phone is not the best, but it was free, so it's this little guy here. It's called Fauth, F-A-U-T-H. This guy here is Reinhold. Fauth apparently was a selenographer, which means guy who studies the moon. Let's see if any of these guys over here have names. And these are the Carpathus Mountains here. And see if we can figure out the names of some of these craters here. So it's here. This crater here is called not the I don't what the Gay Lussac, which I assume would be a French astronomer. There's also a don't know if we can see it on here, but I'll see if I can spot it. There's a Rima here of the same name. There we go. Good contrast picture. So in here, then let's see what else we got over here. And over here, we have another crater has a name. This one here called T. Mayer, after Tobias Mayer, who was a German astronomer in the 1700s. And some mountains named down here, Rima, T. Mayer down here as well. And let's move. Let's zoom out a little bit here and move south a little bit more and see what we can see. We'll move south. Things will get a little blurry when we do that. There we go. Helen, well, that's an interesting looking crater. Let's get that guy kind of centered and figure out who he is. Okay. It's an interesting crater. Got a nice central peak in there. That is Gassendi crater. And where the cursor is right now is the Mare Humorium, sea of humors. Oh, that's kind of an interesting little chunk of the moon. Let's move down a little. Let's move a little farther south and see what else we can see. So there's the entire Humerium. Some lovely craters around there with central peaks. We can move down here like here. This crater here has a central peak. It has a name too, which is Gatello. So there's a crater there. Now we can see this crater is newer than these craters because it's on top of them. And these guys look like they may have been here before this mare was formed because it looks like the mares kind of filled them in. Let me move this just a little bit further south and get that area kind of centered. There we go there. Well, now we can take a look. I will grab my little lunar map here and take a look at it. See what we have at that bottom. Those things probably have names as well. So this crater right here, which is a little kind of add-on to this crater here, is called Lee. And this one's called Doppelmayr. This little guy here is called Ramsden. Let's go down a little bit more. I want to find Tycho, which will be over this way. Oh, there's some interesting craters. Look at that long oblongy thing at the bottom down there is. Oh, it's called Schiller. This guy here, this oblong one, is called Schiller. If it's one thing hit it and went and dug through a bit, or if it many things kind of hit at the same time. Hard to tell on that one. Now let's go over this way a little bit more. Now this is the southern bit of the moon, which is a much older terrain than the kind of the northern bit where all the mare are. And that's, again, we know that because of the large amount of craters. So this big crater here is Clavius. So let's move this way just a little bit more and then go north. We should be able to find Tycho, which is a relatively new crater because it has a lot of rays on it. So let's go north here. This is pretty sure this is in here. Don't see anyone else it could be. So this guy here is the crater Tycho. He's a relatively new crater. We can tell because we've got all this. Here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Here we are. We can tell because all of these things coming from them. Okay, when the object hit and formed this crater, it spewed dust and debris out all over the place. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere, so it doesn't get slowed down. So it eventually, by gravity, falls back down, and that's why we get all this bright, what's called ejecta, all over the place. And let me see if I can get him centered a little better. There we go. So there he is. There's Tycho and all the rays that come off of him because of what happened when he got hit. So I think, since we've been on live for an hour and a bit, I think I may call our first experimental broadcast from the WCO here, the Wilson Cooley Observatory, the Calgary Center of the RASC. If you want to check out the RASC, I would recommend that. Calgary.rasc.ca, and then you can click around there. There is a link to the Wilson Cooley Observatory, which is where we are currently live streaming from. And it's starting to get dark, so I may, once I'm done the live stream here, to look at getting set up for my evening's planned observing. But it was good to give this a shot to see how it worked. Because, like I said, it's all very new for us out here, our internet connection. So it seems to have worked out well. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in on Twitter, because this live stream will be ending, and of course I may not see the questions anymore. But at Evil Scientist CA would be the place to ask questions. And I hope everyone has a good weekend. If you're Canadian, enjoy the long weekend. And we will try this again. It may not happen a lot during the summer, because of course it doesn't really get dark in the summer here. We're very far north. But as we get further into the winter, I may do some brave the cold, as it were, and do some more. So for that, we will call it a night. I'm going to stop the camera here. And I'm going to stop the live stream. Okay, so I've changed the bit rate to a lower rate. This is just an experiment because that may help as well. I wonder if I can increase my resolution, if that's the case. So I'm going to stop the streaming briefly. Okay, so a lower bit rate, but a higher resolution. So that seems to help a little bit. Okay, that's good to know. Don't know who else is out there, but that seems to be working. So I'll give that another thing to experiment with. So I will